Welcome to the Open House podcast site. Available at openhouseonline.com.au.
This is our weekly segment exploring every fascinating aspect of what it means to be truly human with our resident clinical psychologist, Lyn Worsley. Last week we embarked on a 4-week pursuit of happiness with some significant insights on this quest that seem to have gripped our world in recent years. Tonight, an important central element in that pursuit of happiness, finding a purpose in our life. Lyn Worsley is sitting opposite me with this big smile on her face because she's happy. Hi, Lyn.
Hi, Lyn.
Thanks very much for coming in again. How important is that purpose in life when it comes to happiness? It might seem a bit of an unusual link to make, so explore that for us.
Yes, it's actually a really good link because when you look at the studies that psychologists have done on studying happiness, the key feature of the results is that those who are truly happy, those who are resilient and in the midst of pain and suffering and experience some sort of joy in difficult circumstances, have a sense of meaning in their lives. And the sense of meaning gives them a sense of purpose in the midst of the pain and a reason for it. Researchers have looked at people who are in war zones. They look at people who've coped well despite turmoil around them. They also look at people who've gone through terminal illness and looked at the level of happiness in that process.
How amazing that
Absolutely.
They would look there.
Yes. But interestingly, those people who have enormous difficulties and who still appear to be happy in the midst of their difficulties, the one defining characteristic, when you sort of make allowances for all the other characteristics, the one defining characteristic is that they have a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives.
So even if it's the purpose of either staying alive or dealing with a terminal illness that is going to claim my life.
Yes, if there's a reason for it, that's where they come from.
I think it's probably useful to ask this. When you say purpose and meaning, what do you exactly mean? Is it the ability to capture perhaps a sense of a bigger picture beyond our immediate circumstances, even and especially, I suppose, in the midst of terminal illness?
Yes, it could be that. If we pick up the work of Viktor Frankl, who was a famous psychiatrist who wrote about his experience as a Jew in the concentration camps in the Second World War, his observation of people were that those who had some meaning in their lives appeared to cope with stress better than others. Those who had no meaning would have lost the fight for survival and would appear to lose all hope and lessen their chances of survival. His work is amazing. He has had an incredible observation of people through pain. His famous quote, which I find just beautiful, given what he went through, is that everybody in the midst of suffering is given a chance to bear testimony of the human potential at its best, which is to turn a personal tragedy into a human triumph.
What a paradox.
Oh, yeah. His work was foundational, and he based his observation that man searches for meaning in his or her life. And this search for being significant, for being relevant, is where he wants to go. So not just to live and die and be forgotten, but man needs to have some relevance in his life. When he finds that significance, and the significance is linked with his work or his daily activities or his relationships, there's a great sense of purpose in the work that he does. Now, linking that very old study with one that's a very recent one, just hot off the press, from Japan, it's attracting quite a lot of interest. Now, I'm not very good at Japanese, so I'll give you the word
Neither
here.
am I.
That the study is on the trait Ikigai, Ikigai. So anyone who knows how to speak Japanese can tell me what that is, which is the Japanese concept meaning having something to live for. Now, the study revealed that those with high levels of Ikigai had a reduced risk of death from cardiovascular disease.
Wow.
But again, they looked at the opposite. The results revealed that people without Ikigai, that is something to live for, had 160% higher mortality rate than those who had no meaning.
That's a stunning,
or had meaning or something to live for.
It's a stunning result and takes us beyond psychology into real stuff in our organs that is affecting our life.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Okay, I'm in the search for my meaning and purpose, but it's not just sitting under a rock, I suppose, waiting for me to find it. It may seem a funny question to ask, but how do we discover our meaning and purpose in life? Where are we going to look and what are we going to do?
And this is a great question because
Thank you,
many people come in and ask this question.
Okay.
Now, we look at the work from Martin Seligman, who's one of our leading positive psychology researchers. And he says, there's several things he says, but one of the main things is that to find a meaning and purpose is associated with our significant relationships and how we connect with others. So secondly, he says it's about making a difference in other people's lives or having what we do recognised by significant people. Mm-hmm. The third thing is that's when our unique personal strengths are used to achieve some sort of difference or make some significance to others. So, if we want to sum that up, the way we look for meaning and purpose is to begin by looking outside of ourselves and to other people.
That's the interesting thing. So, in this kind of world, we were talking to Steve Krieger before about social media. It's just such a look at me world where we imagine everything's kind of collapsing in on us, all the attention. To find our meaning and purpose, we go outside of ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's right. Yeah, so if we really want to begin looking, we can start looking at the areas of our lives that are most significant connections and strengths. If we link them together, like friends, community, skills, bit like the resilience work that we've done.
Yep.
When we link our strengths together we get feedback from other people, we start to notice sometimes we have feelings of joy and elation.
Sure.
And that's the hint that there's a link with our strengths as having some sort of significance. I call them donut moments, and that means my strengths are linked up like from the resilience donut.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel like, I can cope. I'm actually doing something that's worthwhile.
And I'm happy to give you a book a plug, which is The Resilience Donut by Lyn Worsley. Well worth getting. I love this. I must say, it's one of the highlights of Open House for me each week, this segment. I'd also love to hear of your experiences on 1300 40 2020 or post on our ever-increasing Open House community Facebook page, 520 to this minute. How have events played out in your life where you found that meaning and purpose, perhaps looked beyond yourself, to the difference that you can make to other people? How did that shape your feelings, emotions, and this is what we're talking about, happiness or contentment? Where did you find your meaning and purpose, and how did you find that? Perhaps it was in your work, in your faith, in your family, or being resilient in those challenging times. In, as Lyn says, relationships making a difference in people's lives. How did that happen with you? I'd love to hear from you on this. Real-life, practical experiences, which we're always on about here on Open House. Meaning and purpose. 1300 40 2020 or post on our Open House community Facebook page. Lyn, there'd be many people listening who'd say that in their faith they've found this identity, meaning, purpose in life. How important a source is that? And can you find it, of course, without faith, which I'm sure you can?
Yes, of course, people can have meaning and purpose without faith. Now, man's search for meaning is about all men and women. However, relationships are the key. Relationships and connecting with your personal strengths and feeling significant to others is the key to finding a sense of meaning and purpose. Faith itself is really a process and not something that's tangible or obtainable at any one time.
Yes.
So it's always changing and growing. But a relationship, if we look at relationships and connections with others, if you have a personal relationship with God, that is something that's different. And ultimately it can affect all our relationships, all our actions and all the decisions in our lives. If you look at the most wonderful love story that God making himself known to man, man's search for meaning is quenched when he finds a personal relationship with God.
Yes.
Through that personal relationship, we find our worth as people and discover the joy of being fully loved, which enables us to have a better relationship with others, which in turn gives meaning to everything that we do.
Yeah.
It's like a cycle.
Nice little circle. Here's a question, though. What if I'm buzzing along happily, full of meaning and purpose? Say in a job or in my ministry or family or whatever, and events intervene where I lose my job or my ministry or even my family. Where am I then?
Yes, this is what we call resource loss. That's the area of loss of areas of connection in our lives which give us meaning and purpose.
Yes.
Loss is often associated with times of transition, times of grief, times of trauma. And most people feel dreadful during this time.
Yes.
Now, during that time, we're challenged to think deeper and to seek meaning in the midst of that pain. And this is where many of our philosophers, theologians, psychotherapists, psychologists have done most of their thinking. So many people refer to leaning on God during these times, and my belief that it's an intensely intimate and personal time with God, which is unique for every single individual. Now, there's an ancient text which I absolutely love, difficult to read, an ancient text called The Cloud of Unknowing.
Okay.
And it's estimated to be written by someone in the 14th century. It hasn't got an author in it, so it's probably a woman that wrote it. The writer talks about a time when a person goes through intense difficulty where he can't see meaning in any parts of his life where he did before. So all meaning's gone. His search for significance is turned completely upside down. His idea of God or a spiritual being is completely challenged. The text regards this process or journey as going through the cloud of unknowing.
Okay.
The writer notes during that time, man's task is to find a new meaning and purpose and understanding of the world. He's to seek new information and to open his mind to new belief and understanding. So when we look at this, the time for searching a meaning then becomes man's most significant time of personal growth.
It's interesting, yes.
So if we bring that text into today's world, we can see that there's a challenge to think of new ways of thinking and seeing the world when we are faced with challenges that don't fit with our current understanding.
That's interesting. Meaning and purpose in life, of course, is something we can't invent or fake. And it's something maybe I can't practice, like changing the way I think. So how can we help ourselves, perhaps, in both finding and nurturing and deepening a sense of meaning and purpose in our life?
Again, let's go back to the research and let's go back to what we're told in the Bible. Look outside of yourself. Start noticing when you feel the most joy in relationships and link them to your strengths. As psychologists, we study the thinking patterns of humans, and those people who are continually open to adapting, learning, and consequently changing their thinking are more optimistic, more open to new opportunities, and have much more fulfilling lives. It's a circular pattern. Seeking understanding, exposure to new experiences, challenging your current thinking, changing your thinking, and then starting again, seeking new understanding, etc.
Yeah.
So it's that pathway, it's being more fulfilled and subsequently finding more meaning, purpose in your life.
Keeps on nurturing itself.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be practical. Always want to be practical about how this has played out, of course, protecting the identities of people that you've had to deal with. How have you seen this play out in practice, Lyn?
I see it very often in practice. I can think of one particular case, of course it's unidentified here, a man who came to see me years ago when he was considering the next stage of his life. His kids were gone, they had their own families, he had a humdrum relationship with his wife, and he didn't feel stimulated or appreciated in the relationship.
Yeah.
He'd come to a time where he just felt spent. And I remember him just sitting and sobbing, which he hadn't done that for years.
Poor bloke.
And he asked, what is the meaning of my life? Why am I here? And why do I continue to be here? And why me?
Dear, oh dear.
So my journey began with him, and it was an absolute privilege to observe his search for meaning. I'm a psychologist. I'm not a spiritual director or a pastor, and my professional training encourages people to search for their significance. But I pray, and I began to pray behind my eyes as I was thinking through things, that he would really search in earnest. Because we know that the Bible teaches us if we search in earnest, we will find him.
Yeah.
The end of the story was when I saw him 10 years later. He was in a very different place, still seeking God, but with many more answers. Different ones, such as, I know there's a God, I can't deny it. And I can feel him. I don't like the whole church thing, but I want to find somewhere I can talk to others about my thoughts.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And yet another example of how people maybe shun the kind of institution of the church, but still seek the contact with people and Christian people within that kind of framework.
Yes,
yeah.
and I really firmly believe it's not about preaching to people about what they have to do and going to church. It's about living with people and having that relationship where they experience the love of God through their relationships.
Can I put you on the spot and ask you a personal question?
Sure
I don't know
can.
whether I can do this, if it's professionally appropriate, but I think I wouldn't mind knowing your meaning and purpose, as you've identified it both in your profession, in your faith, and certainly as you've, I'm sure, helped lots of people in the 6 weeks that we've been doing this segment, The Human Condition, on Open House. How would you define your meaning and purpose in life, and how's that played out?
My meaning purpose of Lyn Worsley? Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
But I think when I consider my meaning and purpose, I consider it in terms of when I see others change around me. And I absolutely love helping people come to a point of change in their lives where they are able to punch the air and feel like they've made a difference. So my meaning and purpose I see in my relationships, my relationship with God. And I honestly say my meaning and purpose comes from being God's hands and feet.
Yeah. That's a great answer, Doctor. Thank you so much. You've passed. I'm, as I said, loving our weekly segment here, Lyn Worsley. Thank you so much again for coming in and joining us on The Human Condition.
Thank you.
See you next week.
We hope you enjoyed this Open House podcast, thanks to Christian Super and Real World Technology. To hear more from Open House, visit openhouseonline.com.au.